Hey y'all, I'm Carolina Tony. We have stumbled upon something that this is really special. This is the home of Aunt Betty and Cheraw McCoy. There was something that really neat happened here. Their direct descendants are still living here, and we're going to go inside and meet them. One of the fellas here even has a TV show, and we'll meet him as well. And we'll get started right after this station identification. Well, this is the Tug River, and right on the other side of the river, that is West Virginia. So West Virginia, Hatfields, right?
Correct.
And over here, where Carolina Debbie and Miss Sheila standing, this is Kentucky.
Well, you're in Kentucky, and you had West Virginia Hatfields and West Virginia McCoys, and you had Kentucky Hatfields and McCoys. Again, through history, people and book writers wanted people to believe that it was Hatfields against McCoys, and that's not necessarily true. There was Hatfields and McCoys together on the West Virginia side that fought with Hatfields and McCoys on the Kentucky side. In fact, on the murder indictments, Tony, there's 3 McCoys listed on that list of 20 men. There's 3 McCoys on there that actually helped kill their 3 McCoy cousins from Kentucky right here.
Right. So on the ground that we're standing now, there are 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 pawpaw trees.
Correct.
Or you could call them a pawpaw bush. Right now, that one's a bush.
Correct.
But they will grow into be a big tree.
Yeah.
Now what happened here?
Well, they have planted these multiple times, I believe, and I think either the flood or they've died out. But that is pawpaw trees there. And what happened is Devil Anse and his crew of guys and family brought the 3 McCoy boys back here to Kentucky.
So they went over to across the Tug River and got the McCoy boys.
Well, they captured the McCoy boys here. They were taking them to jail in Kentucky.
Okay.
And Devil Anse, they intercepted them, and they took them to West Virginia. We're going to take you there next. It's called Warm Holler. And they took them to Warm Holler, and they put them in an old schoolhouse there and held them captive for a day or so. And they said, if Ellison dies, we're going to kill the 3 McCoy boys. Well, Ellison died, and they promised the old woman McCoy, Sally McCoy, Sarah, which was Randall's wife, she had gone there and talked to Devil Anse and tried to get her boys back, or bring them back to Kentucky and let them be tried. You know, say don't harm them. And Devil Anse told her, and Walt Hatfield told her, if he dies, we're going to bring your boys back to Kentucky. Well, they did. They brought them back to Kentucky, and somewhere in this area, they tied them to pawpaw bushes or pawpaw trees. They stripped them down naked. He says, if you come into this world naked, you're going out the same way. And they shot the first 2 boys, a man and a middle-aged boy. They didn't shoot Randall Jr. Now, understand, they took Randall Jr., the youngest 15-year-old boy, by mistake. That it was his brother that was involved, not him. He was completely innocent. By this time, Devil Anse had figured out, we got the wrong fella here. So he didn't want to kill the 15-year-old boy. How's that going to look? So they brought him over here. Devil Anse told the guys who to shoot. When the smoke cleared, you had the 2 brothers on either side, and they were dead. And the youngest one, Randall Jr., was in the middle, and Devil Anse went up and said, get on your knees and beg, which that was his M.O. Devil Anse did that to a lot of people. He intimidated them, especially with guns. And he said, get on your knees and beg, and we'll let you live. Thinking that the boy would get on his knees and he could save face, let the boy live, at the same time not look like he's just letting him go. Randall Jr. looked at him and said, to hell with you, Devil Anse Hatfield. And Devil Anse turned to walk away. The story is, and he took a couple of steps, turned back around, drew his gun, and blew the 15-year-old boy's head off. I mean,
wow.
they didn't. And you'll always see this picture of these 3 men laying on this porch. We've covered that in our videos. That is not the 3 McCoy boys. There's no pictures.
Yeah, that was at OK Corral.
That's at the OK Corral, yeah. Correct. You know your history, that's good. And that's how Cap Hatfield supposedly looked at John C. Hatfield and said, that was a real McCoy. And I know there's all kinds of ways in life that people have said that they're saying the real McCoy has came up.
Yeah.
Or was developed. But that is the way that we heard from the kids growing up, that's a real McCoy.
I always thought it was Walter Brennan. Okay, Fred, coming up, I was a big fan of the real McCoys.
Sure.
And Walter Brennan.
Sure.
And there was cousin Luke.
Little Luke.
And then little Luke, and then Luke's wife, Kate. But
yep.
Kate used to talk about she was from West Virginia. So is it Virginia or Virginia?
Virginia.
Virginia, there you go.
This is Warm Hollow, and this is where the West Virginia Hatfields, when they took over the 3 McCoy boys over in Kentucky, this is where they brought them to. There was an old schoolhouse up through here, and that's where they put them at for the next day or two till Ellison died. And Ellison just lived down the road here at Newtown. But when they got word that Ellison died, then they took the boys back from here, back across the river, over there to where the pawpaw trees were.
Right.
And that's where they killed them at.
So on the other side of that wall is the Tug River, and that is Kentucky over there.
Exactly. Here's your historical markers here for Warm Hollow. Hatfield McCoy feud. With roots extending back years. The famous family feud erupted after the 1882 Election Day brawl in Kentucky between 3 sons of Randolph McCoy and Ellison Hatfield. And see, that's a misconception there, Tony, because there was actually a fight between Bad Elias Hatfield and Tolbert McCoy. You know, that makes it sound like 3 of Randall's sons just jumped on Ellison Hatfield, and that's not what happened. The first fight was over, and then Ellison stood up and challenged Tolbert McCoy, and they started fighting. And they had a fight, and Ellison actually whooped him, Tolbert. And then that's when the other 2 brothers joined in, and that's basically what happened.
Well, Rosanna fell in love with Johnsy at the election ground when they had the election there. Her and Johnsy kind of wandered off. She fell in love with him. She became pregnant.
Now one's a Hatfield, one's a McCoy, right?
Johnsy Hatfield was Devil Lance's son.
Ah.
And then Rosanna was Randall McCoy's daughter.
Gotcha.
And so when they fell in love, she got pregnant by him. She went to move in with Devil Lance, and he didn't like that she moved in with them. So she came here to have the baby.
So this is the house?
Mm-hmm.
So that house, now is this the house had a log cabin in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
it's got the log cabin on the inside.
So this house has been built around the log cabin.
Well, it used to sit over there across the street, and they moved it.
So the log cabin set across the street, and then they moved it and built a house around it. We are learning about the little Sally, and we run up on this fella here.
Sarah
and
Elizabeth.
He is.
I'm a direct descendant from Randall McCoy.
Okay. But you have something, you were telling us about a TV show.
We got a new reality show on Fox. It's on Fox Nation. It's Hatfield McCoy's Feuding Forever.
Y'all have to check that out.
It's a very, very good show.
I'm sure it will be. Thank you.
It's nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Let me tell you about the house. Right there's your
Well,
house.
I was going to let him go inside and see a picture of the. I got one of the logs, the real log, the
We've
real
never
cabin.
been in the house.
Well, when you guys get done with this, just come on in the house and I'll let you show what the real logs look like.
Well, let's walk in the house.
Okay.
Come on.
She,
Okay, come in.
yeah, I've saw pictures, but I've never.
Okay, this is how wide these logs go right here. But I'll show you the original logs. Come here and look at this. I'm going to take all this paneling down and show the original logs.
Hello.
Excuse me.
It was here in 1827. Still hard as a rock. And this is the tree that went extinct because of them beetles back in the 1800s. Hardwood, they come in there and them beetles killed all the hardwood. The History Channel come here and drilled a hole in this because they didn't believe me, and they had it tested, and you said you're right. The original fireplace.
Sure.
The guy in the History Channel was in here, and he kept doing this, doing that. He said, why is that chimney crooked. Well, I don't know. I said, well, they drunk moonshine back then too. I guess they drunk.
Yeah.
Here, they used this for a funeral home. This house been used for everything.
Wow.
Up in Macon, when they throwed the people out of Macon up there when they had that mine struck, they used this house for a union hall. They shot it all to hell. This house got a lot of history,
So I was thinking you moved the cabin, but you moved
No,
this
I
whole
moved this whole house.
that whole house.
I moved this whole house at one time.
So did you already know the story then?
Let me tell you this story. My great-grandfather had a bed frame up there. My great-grandfather slept in it. My grandfather slept in it. My son sleep in it. I mean, let me get back. Get 5, 6 generations still sleeps in the same iron frame bed. I got 2 of them. I had my aunt's 90th birthday here 2 years ago. I had all my aunts and my uncle here. They slept in the same bed frame they growed up in.
Oh snap, that's cool.
It is cool. This house, and believe it or not, this house is haunted. Literally, I had a woman. She's a doctor in Lima, Ohio. She was at Loretta Lynn's house. It was used as a med station during the Civil War, and she said you would never go back.
I seen that.
Yeah.
So this is
This is our whiskey.
that's y'all's whiskey.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, see,
They're
oh,
So where do you buy that?
This is made in Charleston, South Carolina.
How about that? Back home.
I like how you said that. I know where you're from when you speak.
I've never seen the show. Now tell me, what is this?
This is my son, that's my mom, that's me, that's Chris Brown,
Uh-huh.
that's Courtney, that's my wife, that's my sister, and that's my son, and that's William.
And y'all all moonshiners.
Yeah. Well, they don't moonshine because they was part of the show.
And this is your moonshine Emmy?
Yeah, that's a hillbilly animal.
Hillbilly Elma.
That's what I called it, because that first show was a pain in the ass.
Who won the feud?
The McCoys did. We still live in Kentucky. Hatfields, we run their ass off to West Virginia. And that's the end of that story.
Yeah.
But the feud was really over. Devil Lance, he wasn't a devil, he was a coward. He went AWOL and left Cheraw McCoy and all of them over there,
Yep.
and they went to a prisoner of war camp for a couple of years.
Yep.
So when they come
Illinois.
home, Devil Lance was farming our property and digging our coal. And that's what really the feud started over, was the Civil War. The night of the New Year's massacre, guess where Devil Lance was? Over
Oh.
Sarah Ann in his house. He said he had a bellyache. Now who's the devil?
While y'all standing up there, tell us who you all are.
Well, I'm James McCoy.
James McCoy.
Sheila McCoy.
Fred McCoy.
And I'm Renee Quick. Tammy Quick.
Okay.
And these are descendants of Uriah and Aunt Betty. All of us are descendants of Uriah and Aunt Betty McCoy.
We're out of the same brood is what they used to say.
So we're basically here in Aunt Betty's house,
Yeah.
where
Roseanne was born.
Roseanne was born.
Roseanne and Johnson's baby
Sarah.
was born. Sarah Elizabeth.
That Sarah Elizabeth. That baby. Across the street.
Up on
Yes.
the hill. Yeah. This is where Rosanna come to when Randall didn't let her come back home after she got pregnant. This is where she come to stay with Aunt Betty and Uriah. And now there's some, let me clear something up real fast. There was Uriah had a brother named Alan, and his wife was also named Elizabeth, Betty for short. But that Betty was known as Alan's Betty. Uriah's Betty was known as Aunt Betty to everybody. Even her grandchildren called her Aunt Betty instead of Grandma or Momo. She was known as Aunt Betty. And there's a story out a while back I seen from a fellow which Aunt Betty used to have, not Aunt Betty, but Alan's Betty had he died early, and evidently she run a house of ill repute. And there was a guy a while back.
Good job.
And there was a guy a while back that run that story, and that he said it was Aunt Betty, and that is totally incorrect. Aunt Betty and Uriah, look at their house. Uriah was one of the richest men in this community during that time, right, Tom?
Yeah, that's right.
And so they had no reason for Aunt Betty to run a house of ill repute. So that's totally incorrect history on that Betty. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, everybody on the guess what I got? I got Aunt Betty too.
Okay, that little road, yeah.
That is called McCoy Cemetery Road. There was a street sign there forever, but anything around that has Hatfield and McCoy on it, people has a habit of collecting. But that goes up on that hill, and that's where Uriah and Aunt Betty is buried, up on that
Okay.
hill.
So they're buried there.
Yeah. And on the other side of the house
Yeah.
is where Rosanna's baby, Sarah Elizabeth, is buried way up on top of that hill.
Uh-huh.
It's where her little baby is buried.
Yeah.
And the baby was named Sarah after Rosanna's mother, and it was named Elizabeth after Aunt Betty,
Yeah.
Uriah's wife that
Now,
lived here in this
now
house.
Sarah was Randall's wife,
Yes,
and Randall's wife was the one that was beaten almost to death.
exactly.
Exactly.
Jim Vance and John C. Hatfield and
Sarah Elizabeth. Little Sally was the daughter of Rosanna McCoy and John C. Hatfield. She was born in the spring of 1881 and died when she was only 8 months old. In 1880, Rosanna met Johnsy at Election Day celebration at Blackberry Creek in Pike County, Kentucky. They slipped away from the crowd, and when they returned to the polling place, was deserted. Fearful of her family's reaction, Rosanna went home with Johnsy to West Virginia. Neville Ance would not allow his son to wed the daughter of Randolph McCoy. Rosanna loved Johnsy and stayed with him at Devil Ance's home, but became discouraged because he was unfaithful. Disillusioned, she returned home to Kentucky to have Johnsy's baby. Father rejected her, and Rosanna went to live with Aunt Betty at Stringtown, Kentucky. Sarah Elizabeth is buried on a hilltop under the pine trees above Uriah McCoy's house. Well, that is going to be a wrap for our exploration of the Hatfield and McCoy feud. I hope this has shed a little light on the story. I want to thank Fred and Sheila McCoy for showing us around. I promise you, without their help, some of these places we would have never found. I just can't get beside myself. We've had some things today that are just awesome. Or at least I think they are. And I hope you think so too. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a big old thumbs up. Be sure to go to Hatfield and McCoy Museum
Our
Adventures.
YouTube is Hatfield McCoy Museum Adventures.
Or HatfieldMcCoy.com. Or I'm sorry,
FredMcCoy.com.
FredMcCoy.com.
Yeah.
And y'all are doing YouTube videos every day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Every day. So if you want to learn the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, that's where you need to go.
We started 2 months ago, and we've got over 100 videos out now.
So they've got it, and they've got the documentation to prove it. Again, thank you, and until next time, y'all have a good day.